feel welcome. Been here before.
Never been here?
Yeah.
First time?
First time.
All right, well, we're going to make it a great one.
Yeah.
You guys, welcome back into the Agency Therapy Podcast. Super stoked that you guys are here today. We got Mr. Cory Jackson in the building. Let's go. All right. If you guys don't know who Cory Jackson is, he's the founder of Sales Haven. He is also our fractional, I don't even know what you consider it, like
Sales
director. Yeah. And essentially, Cory's been in the sales game for a very long time. We'll jump into that in just a second. But has grown his business exponentially since you started. You've been doing this for 6 months?
6 months.
Yeah. Kind of crazy, man. Crazy journey. And it's been fun to watch you grow and build an incredible sales organization and working with some really incredible clients as well. But take me back real fast. You jumped into the sales world, but before that, you're doing like some really different things in life.
Yeah.
Talk to us, tell the people about like where you went to school, what you graduated with, all of that, because I think that's such a cool part of your journey.
Yeah. So I went to school at Arizona State.
Let's go.
And initially I thought I wanted to be an engineer. That was kind of the goal that I set out with going to school and everything like that. Did mechanical and aerospace. My first job out of college was actually as an engineer. And I hated it. I hated it.
You were
so
with Boeing,
much.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Working on their design team and those kinds of things. And man, it was brutal. Biggest reason, if you don't know any engineers, they're not typically super social people. They're very, very smart. They kind of like to stay in their own lane, do their own thing. But the way I like to describe it is you could be in a room of 500 people and feel like you're there by yourself.
Yeah.
So what I loved about engineering was solving problems and being creative in the solution aspect of a problem. But I didn't like the sociability. I really hated that. So met with some mentors that I had aggregated in college, which was probably some of the best advice that I ever got growing up, was meet as many people who are out in front of you as you can. And believe it or not, every single one of them said, you like solving problems, you want to talk to more people, go into sales. So I did that. My first ever sales job in kind of like a true sales environment, because I had sold like personal training and those kinds of things before then, was with a company called Snack Nation, led by Sean Kelly and
selling snacks.
Yeah, amazing sales director, Kevin Dorsey, who I got to learn a ton from. But yeah, we were doing snack delivery service.
That's crazy. And that was more for, it was like really large companies you were doing this for, right?
It ranged. The smallest end was like 10 employees, all the way up to, huge enterprise corporations. But it was really like the millennial offices. Like if you had ever seen job descriptions where they're like fully stocked kitchen, cold brew on tap, like that kind of stuff. And just helping lift the burden from the HR person to have to like buy snacks.
Yeah.
That was really it. Yeah.
The snack king.
Yeah.
I love it, man.
It was a lot of fun.
So that was kind of like the first pit stop on your sales journey. Where did it kind of develop from there? Because like obviously you're in high ticket, like kind of online coaching consulting space. Like where did it start to develop more into that versus you guys are delivering more like a product service delivery?
Yeah, so I went from there into the finance realm, financial planning, high-end advisory, like those kinds of things. Did some fundraising, client acquisition, talent acquisition for some offices based out of Southern California. Then from there, I went to a huge organization called ADP. They're a big payroll and benefits company and those kinds of things. And then at my tail end there, came across a guy named Taylor Welsh.
Yeah.
And Taylor Welsh
T-dubs.
actually got me into the true like internet marketing high ticket space. And I've been in it ever since, working on both B2C offers as well as B2B, and then got some great experience working in the agency space for being able to help close agency clients versus just like biz op style offers.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that pretty much catches us up to today. And really, I don't want to like go like, hey, like what's the history of Cory Jackson? Like more of like, hey, how can we provide value to our community and the people that actually watch this? So I guess what is the biggest misconception you're seeing in the sales space right now? It seems to be becoming like almost like the agency space or like agency coaching consulting, like starting to become very saturated with people that are like, the best closers or the best tactics for salespeople, developing more sales staff. Like what's like the biggest misconception you're seeing in the sales space right now?
Just from a salesperson perspective, a lot of people make the transition from like a traditional sales environment into like the high ticket space, assuming that all they're going to have to do is take calls on their calendar. I have noticed that be a very, very large misconception because there is still prospecting that's involved, opportunity development, those kinds of things. Now, granted, calls do get booked onto your calendar, which is different from a typical like outside sales space. But the biggest thing that I'm seeing from founder-led sales teams and founder-led agencies is that their salesperson can sell the same way that they can. That is a huge gap that we're seeing across the board because the owner's going to have owner bias, founder bias.
Of course.
They're going to be able to get really into the weeds where it's not beneficial for a salesperson to do so. And that's a huge gap in having a founder-led organization, founder-led sales team making that assumption.
Yeah. What's kind of like the, because like I sold in our offer for the longest time. I still sell into our offer, and then obviously you and I split some sales calls and stuff. But what's kind of that transition period like? When's a good time to go from being a founder-led sales organization to like actually building a sales team and everything, all the nuances that go into that?
Yeah. I wouldn't actually say that it's like a revenue number or a client number. Typically, the founder will make that transition when time dictates that, when they don't actually have enough time to make sales calls. Or what's happening is they make a ton of sales calls, they onboard clients, and then they don't do anything, and then they have client churn, and it creates like the roller coaster, right?
Yeah.
So that's a good time to be able to do that. But from an infrastructure standpoint, it's when you can make your calls mechanical. Like when you have a process that you can follow, whether that be a script or frameworks that remove a lot of that founder bias. And you can have somebody step in and replicate the same calls that you can. And if you don't have that, you want to be able to work with somebody to develop that because somebody coming in won't be able to sell the same way that most founders do.
What about like some like the premature indicators, like when people jump in a little bit too fast?
Yeah, so what I'll call like the gold standard in the inbound space is being able to have an opportunity that your closer can make anywhere between 8 to 12K a month, right? That will allow you to attract the appropriate talent, retain the appropriate talent. So if you don't have enough opportunity to be able to have somebody come in and actually do that, then you're probably premature in your thinking for hiring a closer at that point.
Okay, gotcha. So essentially, one, there has to be enough opportunity in the pipeline, and then two, as far as like from your side, like CRM system, like should you have your CRM in order? Like what internal operations are you seeing on your side of like this needs to be prepared before you even think about bringing on someone to close for you?
Yeah, I think there's four major. I'm going to say three major components that have to be in play in order for that to make sense. One, you do have to have consistent leads coming in, some kind of lead gen system that is producing conversations or at least producing contacts for outreach, right? So whether that's opt-ins, lead magnets, outbound activities, if you buy lists, like it's just something where you can have those. The second will definitely be sales systems. So you will need to have a CRM in place to be able to manage all of those conversations, especially from going from a founder to a salesperson. The volume that a salesperson is going to be able to do because they don't have to wear all the 5 other hats that a founder does. You have to have the systems in place to support that. But then something that often happens when the founder transitions out and a salesperson comes in is fulfillment can't withstand the amount of deal flow that comes in. So then you either have to like pause a salesperson, you churn somebody, you have to turn ads off or whatever's bringing people in order to catch up on the fulfillment side.
Yeah. Fastest way to unmotivate a salesperson
Fastest way.
Have a wait list. It's the worst thing ever. So got to make that wait list as minimal as possible.
Yeah. It's almost like reaching out to your sales rep and saying like, hey, I can't figure out the back end, so I need you to make less money this month. Yeah. And you can't do that.
Yeah, it's a quick way to lose a really talented person. It's like you need to keep the sales flow going. It's like momentum is everything in sales. And it's like you just got to keep pushing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love it, man. from your perspective, like you've gone in and you've helped structure and start building a lot of systems and operations for a lot of these teams. What's like some of like the low hanging fruit that you commonly see that you're like, hey, like these are easy wins, these are easy pickups. Every time we come in, like people are rarely doing this. Like go do this, and you're gonna start seeing more success in sales.
So from the operations side, just having appropriate automations in place. You'd be surprised at how many organizations I step into that don't have confirmation text messages.
Yeah.
That don't have no-show workflows, right? Like those very low-hanging fruit from a system standpoint. And then typically when we come in, we have to build, if it's not existing already, we have to build call frameworks of like, this is how you have to repeat your calls over and over and over again. Because eventually you want them to become mechanical. And when they become mechanical, just like in a car, you can see when the dashboard light comes on. If your engine light comes on, you don't check your tire pressure.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So if it's like, hey, this is where the problem is, because the calls are repeatable, then you can diagnose the problem where it's at to lead to more predictable outcomes.
How do you structure some of those frameworks? It's like, yeah, I think a lot of people understand that there needs to be a framework in place, but like, how do you go in discovering the right framework for a specific offer?
So we start with like an overarching framework that works for every sales conversation that exists. And then we finally tune it down for something that's offer specific. So we always start with rapport, only 60 to 90 seconds. Then we go into setting the frame of the call. Hey, this is what we're going to be talking about. Then in discovery, we look at where you are now. Where do you want to go? What is the cost of where you are right now? What are the consequences of not changing that? Then you go into your offer of what you're going to do, why you're going to do it, how you're going to do it, when you're going to do it by. And then there has to be like objection handling frameworks at the end.
Yeah.
And then we take that framework and put calls through and then refine it over, maybe 10, 20, 30 calls to be able to add any nuances that are offer specific.
Yeah. What are some like if you can go into specifics, when you're looking at an offer, like what are some of those like nuances or like some of those like little things that you're seeing that people are typically skipping over?
It's typically going to be the avatar that you're selling to is where those nuances come into play in the framework. So a B2B offer is going to be more logical than like a B2C offer will be. So like the discovery questions, the tie downs that you get are going to be slightly different from a $50 million enterprise to somebody wanting to leave their 9-to-5 job. But the frameworks themselves will stay the same.
Okay, gotcha. Part. So for the most parts, rapport, frame, current, desired, and then cost of current, and then consequence.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you go into the offer itself. Yeah.
Nice. I think the industry has like gotten into this like mode of like, oh, we're gonna one call close everything. Yeah. Just from your standpoint, like typically, what do you guys try? Like, what do you try to see on like a like percentage basis of things that are one call closing versus like long term follow up and continuing to nurture the pipeline?
Yeah, I think it's around the solution. So if it's a B2C biz op, something along those lines that's 10K or below, you should see significantly higher one call close rate than like if you're selling SaaS to a 500 person organization.
Sure.
Right. So in agency services, which is B2B for sure, and most of those services range, I would say on the low end of like local lead gen of like $1,000 a month up to $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a month retainers. For anything that's like 8K and below, I do like to see way more of those 1 to 2 calls. If you're doing 2 calls, it should be like a presentation or like a deck that you present or proposal or something.
Yep.
But then if it's north of that, you may see 3, 4, 5. An astonishing statistic is in an average Fortune 500 company, there's 6 decision makers you have to go through.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So the larger the business, typically just more people have to like sign off on it, which lengthens the sales cycle out.
Yeah, for sure. We talk about metrics internally quite a bit. What are some of like the glaring metrics that you really look at to see how well a sales organization is actually doing.
Yeah. So the first one that I think doesn't get looked at hard enough is show rate. So show rate leads the rest of it. Because if you have a 40% close rate, but your show rate's 50%, that show rate is going to be the biggest needle mover.
Yeah,
right.
for sure.
So show rate, number one. Then I look at call taken to call closed. And then I look at offer given to offer closed. Those are going to be like the three that I look at from like a metric standpoint. And then I also am going to look at sales cycle duration. How long from first call to close is the average? And then where can you apply constraints on both sides to create a bell curve? Where this becomes really important for business owners is knowing the lag time of money out to money in.
Yeah. Oh, it's so interesting. As far as like touch points go, we talked about this recently.
Yeah.
It's way more touch points than you typically think it's going to be.
Yeah.
Typically, like how many obviously like as many touch points as it takes to close a deal, but I think it would be cool to like hear from your perspective of like on average, how many touch points are you having from a prospect, like going from like lead to close? How many touch points on average do you think someone should be having with someone before they actually close?
Yeah. From lead to close, it's probably going to be in the 15 to 20 range.
Yeah.
From lead to call set, it's usually going to be 5 to 10. And then if there is a second call, proposal, hey, touch point, email, call, second call, follow up kind of a thing. So I think it's going to sit probably 15 to 20 right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of times we get in this like mindset of like, oh, if it doesn't close on this call, it's like, all right, the deal's kind of dead. It's like, no, it's like we play such a long-term game. Like we had a deal closed today that's been in our pipeline for 7 months.
Yeah.
7 months. And we've had so many touch points. Honestly, there's probably 30 to 40 touch points with this prospect.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's what wins deals at the end of the day. It's not some crazy script. It's not some, magic pill that we could just take and be able to implement something that's going to work. It's like sometimes it's just knocking on the door until someone answers.
Yeah, I agree. And it also stabilizes the peaks and valleys that marketing is going to go through. So you're going to have months where marketing is crushing.
Yep.
Right. But then just reality of the situation, marketing is going to dip. And if you're a salesperson, expect that. It's going to happen.
How do you deal with some of those ebbs and flows? Like from the market, like that's outside of your control as like a sales executive and as someone that's leading the sales front. How do you guys deal with like some of those, especially like in the downtimes of marketing with Facebook ads just stop working or, outbound messages stop working? Like, what are you guys doing?
Controlling controllables, but where we give grace to the marketing team to catch up 30 days, 45, 60 days in order to make any adjustments is through pipeline management. At any given point in time where you really assess the floor of production is when no leads are coming in. What can you actually produce month over month without having any ads running, without doing any outbound activity to generate new leads? And that is going to come from pipeline management for sure. So those 30, 40 touch point deals, how many of those exist in the CRM to be able to pull them across the line when needed?
Yeah. Something we talk about a decent amount is like the hot list. Like hit the hot list, hit the hot list. Like, can you explain what the hot list is and how to utilize it?
Yeah. So the hot list is somebody who has shown intent around not necessarily purchasing, but being interested in the service that you provide. At the very least, is problem aware.
Sure. And maybe they've heard your pitch or something, weren't ready to move forward, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe they had a call 3 months ago, 4 months ago. That could still be a person on the hot list. Somebody who buys a low ticket offer or front end or opts into a lead magnet or those kinds of things who has shown interest. And I would even qualify it as like a hot list for people who have engaged back to like a warm list for people who are problem aware to potentially a cold list, and then prioritizing those lists accordingly for activity metrics when and if marketing takes a nosedive, but just doing it all the time and not being reliant on marketing to produce new leads.
How important do you think it is to have like some sort of low ticket in place?
I think it kind of depends on the offer a little bit. It's a great way to liquidate ad spend, and it's a great way to start and engagement because they start as a client already.
Yeah,
right.
They've already
start as
purchased.
a purchaser. Yeah, exactly. Which will typically lead to higher close rates on the back end, especially if you're giving a lot of value on the front end, builds a lot of market leader positioning and those kinds of things as well, which makes closing easier when you have the authority already built based on the resources that somebody's paid for.
Yeah, that's a really good point to also dive in on. Is like there's a massive lack of trust in our marketplace right now.
It's the lowest.
Yeah, it's the lowest it's ever been. There's more marketers than ever. There's more ads being ran. There's all these gurus in the space saying that they can fix all the problems of your business. How are you combating some of that with the clients that you're working with?
It's the touch points. It is taking somebody from, I don't even know who you are, to here's some value, here's some value, here's some value. And it's a little bit of like give, ask to be able to build that trust up. That is working across the board for the agencies that have the value to give. And I do think that luckily for the agencies that are positioned well, that actually offer an amazing service, it's starting to create the separation between the ones who aren't. And I think we're going to see a lot of those underperforming agencies die.
Yeah. If you're one of those underperforming agencies, how do you establish some of that trust, do you think?
That's a good question. The short answer is doing your job
Yeah,
that you're hired for. Being able to have good customer results, gathering testimonials, starting to build some social momentum behind what it is that you're doing. Because if the sales process is strenuous, it means that the offer or service doesn't have a lot of authority.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, the results side is like easily the most important. Like you want to establish any type of trust, like you got to be able to show you can deliver those results. But I think there's still a massive gap in the marketplace for like the personal brand side and like establishing yourself as a market leader. People tend to shy away from this. I don't know why exactly. I think like building on the business brand is going to be the way to go, and we see it time and time again. Is like people just, they see a business brand and they're not wanting to engage with it. You go to like acquisition.com, Alex Hormozy's business, and you go to their Instagram page. It's got like 3,000 followers. Like they don't even post on it. And it's like, okay, you go to Alex Hormozy's profile, it's like 3 million, something, something like that. So it's like people are more willing to follow a face and a name and a personality over like a business brand. So I think the time of like building the personal brand and like kind of backpacking it for a little while, because like eventually, like if you want to sell the business, like it can't be completely attached. Like there's key man risk involved there. Sure. If there's too much reliance on the personal brand, and so there will be a time when that separation needs to happen. But for the majority of people listening to this podcast, it's like they don't have the established brand name yet. They don't have the established personality yet. And it's like that's what you should work on first before you jump into like the actual like business brand side, because it's way harder to build. There's less personality there. It's harder to relate to someone that is relate to a business that's just like a business brand versus a personality.
Yeah, and I think people are taking advice from people who are not where they are. A lot of people who have like really made it in big businesses that are out there, they're taking the advice of where they are now versus the things that it took in order for them to get there. As an example, like Coca-Cola, huge brand. Can you name the CEO of Coca-Cola?
No, I have no clue.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, no clue.
And they're modeling their brand reputation and building around the people who are gigantic. Right? Even Apple, right? Apple was on the Steves. Both Steves back initially with a lot of personal brand around that. And it stayed that way for a long time.
Elon Musk.
And then it eventually became Apple. Right? Eventually became Tesla, where at this point now, Tesla's stock would take a huge hit if Elon were to go down, but I don't know if it would evaporate off the earth. Right?
Yeah. I'd be curious to see what happened if he like stepped away from the business. I'm sure it would drop a little bit, but I think it would still be a viable business. I mean, whether or not electric cars are actually the future. I think people are starting to second guess that notion because it's way harder to produce than I think people think. But that's a different topic for
Hydrogen cars.
hydrogen cars, exactly. I love it. Well, what are you most excited about right now in the sales space? Like, what's kind of getting your juices flowing, and what are like some of the big opportunities you're seeing right now?
I think we're about to hit a fairly pivotal shift in the sales space, where a lot of the kind of scummy, slimy salespeople
Yep.
are going to get pushed out.
Okay.
And there's going to be, I think, a rejuvenation in the sales space, especially with the development of AI and those kinds of things coming in. I think the ability to have true, honest, ethical sales conversations is slowly going to push salespeople into like a very elite category of career. Very similar to like the skilled trades, the plumbers, the electricians. Like I think that is going to become exorbitantly valuable over the next 10 to 20 years.
Yeah.
And I think that that's going to happen in the sales space as well.
When you're saying like more of like the scummy sales guys, I'm not like asking for names, but like what should people be on the lookout for? Like if someone's going to invest into sales training, if someone's going to invest into, you know, building that skill set, like you want to build it the right way. And there's definitely a right way and a wrong way of building it. Like what are some things that people should be on the lookout for building their sales skills ethically, and you know, that helps build trust and doesn't like put them in a position where they're going to be, you know, kind of being more of the scummy salesperson?
Yeah. The short answer on that is I think hard closing is, I don't want to say going to die, because there are amazing salespeople out there that lean a little bit more hard close style.
Sure.
But they do it in such an ethical manner. And they typically move into that hard close environment when the solution is the best thing for the person, and the person is just getting in the way of themselves, right?
Sure.
But when people are being sold products that they don't need, and or salespeople are staying on offers too long that are not actually providing the right fulfillment, it's gonna change here very quickly. So relationships over revenue, people hear that all the time, but look for the people who actually practice that. That's going to be really important.
Any, like, where can people find like your sales training? Because you're doing a ton of like just freebies right now, building a lot of trust in the space. Like where can people, one, learn from you, and then engage with you?
Yeah, so if you want the free trainings, those are in my Facebook group called Silverback Sales Q&A. We do free Zoom Q&As 3 times a week.
Yeah,
you hop in.
They're fire, by the way.
Ask me questions.
Yeah, they're so good. I love them. They're one of my favorite trainings to go to, so you'll see me in there from time to time.
Absolutely. So that's free 99. Come on in, ask questions, develop. We also will manage entire sales teams if that's something that you need, build out all the systems, people, those pieces from a fractional side. And then we do have our own development course, education course called Silverback Certified. So they can come in there. There's a setter, a closer, and a director level for those things, because they're very different skill sets on the way up.
For sure.
And then my handle on everything is Silverback Sales.
Silverback Sales. And then make sure you connect with Cory on LinkedIn as well, because he's posting more content there. That's like me keeping you accountable for posting more content.
I need to.
Yeah, because he's got some really awesome things to say, and he's trained a lot of our clients. He's trained our sales team, and can tell you guys it's been a game changer for what we're doing. Any buzzer beaters?
Nah, man, I appreciate being here.
Yeah, dude, super fun.
And the agency sales space is different from the high ticket space.
Yep.
So make sure that when you bring in a closer at some point, for any agency owner out there, that you have the appropriate education around that.
Yeah, absolutely. Set them up for success.
Absolutely.
The right systems, the right trainings, pour into that staff, because, I mean, it is the driver. It's like the pump for the entire business. So
absolutely,
if that's off, the whole organization will be off. So
falls apart. Yep.
Let's go, man. Well, thanks for coming on, man. You guys,
Absolutely.
thanks for tuning in for Agency Therapy today. Quick one, short one. Loved it. We'll have Cory back. Cory's here all the time, so we'll have him back in the future, and we'll do we should do like a full like sales crew in here at some point.
I would love that.
Get like Jake and Josh all top in here. Do like a full sales huddle. That'd be so much fun.
That would be super fun.
Talk about like some of like the most interesting calls that you guys have had, things like that. That'd be super fun.
The war stories.
The war stories, exactly.
Yeah.
So awesome, guys. Hey, real quick, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, follow along if you're listening on the podcast side of things. Make sure you reach out to Cory. He's got awesome free sales training, so make sure you guys jump in on some of those Zoom meetings, and we will see you guys in the next one. Peace. Rocking, dude. Nice job.